So, hello, I'm Melanie Goodfellow. I'm the Senior International Film Correspondent for Deadline. And it gives me great pleasure to be on the stage this morning with the first panel. The question's quite a thorny one. Are film festivals drifting away from what works in cinema? So I have to my immediate left, Fionnuala Jameson, who's Managing Director at MK2 Films. You've got the Palme d'Or, Cannes Palme d'Or, Anatomy of a Fall, amazing. You've got the Fiend Trox Holly, which was in Venice. How to Have Sex, which I think is going to be in the London Film Festival soon, and we're hoping that's going to do well in the box office in the UK when it comes out in November. Settlers, Only the River Flows, Reality, so many festival titles just to name a few. We have Susan Wendt, who is a managing director at the Danish film company Trust Nordisk. You're here with The Promised Land, which was announced as Denmark's Best International Film Feature Oscar entry for this year, just this week. It's playing here. It's done Venice, Telluride, Toronto, just been at San Sebastian, and now the team's here. And I think Mads Mikkelsen's going to get an award, I think, during the festival. And then we have Daniela Eltzner. You're the managing director of Unifrance. You're promoting French cinema all over the world. You're at a lot of festivals helping French cinema be seen, and also you have your own festivals like Rendezvous with French Cinema in New York or in Tokyo. And then obviously some of us do remember you as a sales agent at Doc and Film, where you were also putting documentaries and sometimes not necessarily easy films commercially into festivals and selling them and finding them distributors. So to start the panel off, I thought we could just a question to all of you. Would you like to start with this one? It's my question is, when you look at festivals, what do you see the role of a festival? Are they a marketing tool, or are they just part of a box office campaign, or are they something else?
I think it's a little bit all of the above. And as sales agents and producers, were initially looking for the proper launch for the film in terms of where it's going to feel right in terms of press, where it's going to, where it's going to do the best in terms of press, and where we're going to sort of get the best distribution deals internationally for a film, where it's going to have that best sort of platform and elevation. And we're also considering things like prizes and how that can elevate films later down the road when they start to hit theaters. So a mix of all the above.
Yeah, I agree. It's a combination, and it really depends on the film itself. If we have a film with a known director, bigger auteur, big cast, it's more a promotional thing, helping distributors all around to get attention and good reviews for a film. But if you have like a first-time director, it's just as much to get the director out there, get her known, him known, and getting the film seen, and then starting really to get attention from distributors as well.
Yeah, of course, it's a little bit of all, but I think also we are in a very shifting world, and we need, of course, the festivals to build up. But as a promotion agency, as Unifrance, we are also questioning ourselves. What is the best way to be present at the festival to help the films to get out? So I think the work with the press, of course, is really crucial during festivals, but it's crucial during the whole year. And so it's for us, we did invent festivals online. We are even expanding one festival that we're starting in 2 weeks, which goes also into the metaverse, and we built a cinema in Minecraft. So, we are fully behind festivals. But on the other hand, we are also rethinking our future right now as Unifrance, and we take into account like what is actually the best way to help our films to get out. And I think they need festivals, but they need also a steady a steady way to be with them all the year and go to the countries where they're getting released to do another promotion on the top. I think now we might even need both. Like you start with the festival and then you have to do a second round, which is like when the film's getting released. So that's also, it has always been like that, but I think it's getting even more important.
There's another aspect that I also wanted to discuss within this, in that we're all very critical. We all go to festivals and we say, that lineup wasn't great, or why did they have that film in there? And But at the same time, there is this aspect of films being like sort of a place of discovery and diversity. And if some of these films don't show in San Sebastian or Zurich or any other festival, those directors are not going to have a start to their careers. I don't know, or do you feel that's just doesn't make sense anymore, that we shouldn't be wasting money on sort of showing films and promoting films that may not have a box office later on? Susan, maybe.
Well, I think it's important to have the balance, to have the variety. We need both the bigger films out in the festivals, but we also need to explore and find the new talent. And let's face it, it's very rare that you have a first-time director who comes out with the biggest box office hit from the very beginning. So I think it's important to try to find the new directors as well and give them a voice, but it's a balance in between having both at the festivals and maybe in different sections as well. So we can't just go after bigger directors and cast. We need everything because we also need the next generation.
Because Fenula, I was thinking about Justine Triet, and I was looking back over her career and Age of Panic, which I love, her first proper feature, and that world premiered at Acid in Cannes. Came here actually 10 years ago, played in competition. So, but when it came out in France, it only was seen by 30,000 people. So it made what, $250,000 or something. A decade later, she has the Palme d'Or, and how many people have now seen the film? In
1.1 million in France.
Exactly. So
admissions.
And in terms of Justine Triet, she's really a director who we've discovered through festivals.
And that absolutely speaks to her Cannes speech as well, which caused quite a stir when she got the Palme d'Or, and she was basically defending, public funding in France to allow filmmakers like her to make mistakes in the beginning, or to make films that are not necessarily instant box office hits, and then a few films down the line. This is her fourth film. She's now, Palme d'Or winner, and the biggest opening for a Palme d'Or film in 15 years. That's in France and all the other territories where the film has so far been released, which is a handful in Europe. And her role is just kind of sort of beginning. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. There's lots of films that maybe shouldn't have been made, and there's maybe some kind of auteurs that need to sort of rethink, what they're saying and why, and the times have changed. But at the same time, completely kind of cutting that thing off and not allowing platforms for young talent to emerge, for new ideas to percolate and develop is a risky thing as well.
I mean, and just in terms of Cannes, because MK2 obviously has a huge presence there every year. What's your sense about a Palme d'Or? I mean, obviously it's worked in terms of Justine Triet's movie Anatomy of a Fall. Does it help the box office internationally every time?
I mean, there's different Palme d'Ors. I think there's some that are that are maybe more experimental, that are less obvious audience sort of pleasers, and then you have these Palme d'Ors that kind of get hugely elevated by that award. And there's those countries in the world where, I don't know, somewhere like Greece, they love prizes. They love prizes in China. A Palme d'Or is going to get you theatrical distribution in China, and it won't for other films. Like that's the case for Justine Triet. I think it's one of the only films, anyway, art house films in the year that's going to have a theatrical release in China, or that's been bought by the theatrical release. They still have to pass their censorship, but it's been bought by the distributor in China that actually does art house theatrical releases. There's other countries where it plays a little bit less into things, but I think also. Since Parasite, it's massive success. It's really kind of elevated the Palme d'Or and what that means to audiences, and especially in the U.S. because I know that Neon did a little test screening for Justine Triet's film for 250 cinema goers in the United States, and the result, I'm not sure if I can say this, Tom, but it was the number one driving force for people to actually go to this test screening was the Palme d'Or. And that's something that's really kind of changed since in the last few years.
That's interesting. So,
well, basically, there's been a few blockbuster Palme d'Ors, and it's kind of being looked at differently.
So I never know. With some other places I've spoken to, they don't think it's important, but and in France, of course, it's really important. I mean, that's like everybody wants to have that. Even just have been in Cannes is important for.
Well, distributors often pretend it's not, so they don't have to pay more, but that kind of happens, and they cite examples of films that never did any business. But there's different kinds of Palme d'Ors again.
But I mean, obviously, we're talking about the mother of all festivals, and then we tend to focus on the A-list festivals when we have these conversations. But there are I think there are about 20 film festivals here. France, I think, has 50, 60 film festivals. You've got Annecy for animation, Deauville for the US Indies, Angoulême for French cinema. And I was just wondering how much those festivals come into your strategy. So Susan, you were talking a little bit about this, about how you, not necessarily always looking for to be in competition in Berlin or Cannes or Venice, but you look at other strategies.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on each individual film, I think. And for certain films, it's not really relevant maybe to go after Cannes. Of course, every director wants to be in Cannes, but it's really finding a way to promote the films in the best possible way. And I mean, we had a film called Ninja Baby a few years ago, which is a first-time female director. It has like a very special touch to it, the film, and we were trying to find a combination of the film because it's basically kind of coming of age, and we knew when we submitted it for Berlin that they would most likely take it for Generation, which can be complicated in terms of sales because then you're in this strange target group. But then we tried to get it, and we succeeded in getting it to South by Southwest, which goes more into the genre side. And that combination really helped the film, and it ended up being sold more or less worldwide, and it got a lot of awards around in different countries, and it really got the director out there in the field as well.
And Daniela, when you're promoting French cinema all around the world, do you try and put those titles or help those titles be in films which are internationally focused, or kind of like smaller festivals which are more really for domestic public festivals? Like Susan, actually, you were talking more about like things like Munich or Hamburg. Are those sort of festivals important for you? Do they help get people into cinemas afterwards?
Well, first of all, Unifrance doesn't have the power of of putting anything anywhere, and we're just following the great work of our sales agents and producers. And we, of course, we try to help by inviting festival directors to select films when they watch films in a theater at our office. So I think this is very important. We're not the only ones to do it, or other European countries do it. But I think that the very important thing is like to shape the right career for each film. And I think this probably over the last 3 years made the life of sales agents also more and more complicated, because you have really to shape a strategy almost for each film, and which can be very different. So it's, of course, everyone targets first the A festival list, but then if it doesn't, or you have a premiere, but then you also have to follow and to be sure that in every country you choose the right festival for the right film. Because as you said, in France there are so many films. Do you prefer an animation film festival for your animation film, or you go to a more general festival because, I don't know, the release date is more closer to your festival in that way? So I think it's a very tough work for sales agents, but I think the most important thing about all these festivals is also, I mean, what we are doing here right now, the networking, and I think the networking is for us as the professionals behind the films, but it's also for the directors. I mean, yesterday I was at the premiere of Iris Kaltenbach's film here in Switzerland, The Ravishment, which premiered in Cannes at the Semaine de la Critique. And she has a steady career in festivals, and the film is going to come out in 1 month or 2 months in France. But it's her first film. And the way she speaks to the public, the way she meets with you here, the way she's talking and gets talked about her film, that's the first step to an international career for her next films. And I think, of course, this is really very important for first, second film directors, as we just said, for Justine Trier, so that you then, of course, the next film and the third, the fourth film, you are already known. You have the distributors know you, the press will recognize you. Because let's face it also, I mean, you are Deadline, you know it. How difficult is it to get the critics to write about the film, even in Semaine de la Critique, in Venice Days, in Giornate degli Autori, even if it's a premiere? That's a major problem today, how you get selected, but then you are not even there yet. You have to work that you also get the awareness. That's where Unifrance tries to help, that we create this awareness. But I think this is also a major challenge that we all have, because it's not only being in a festival, it's also be there, get seen. And of course you have the very strong films that are like naturally somehow growing, but all the others, they need this little help behind. And I think this is also something we really try to work on, like to get more attention of the press, more critics, more reviews in a different way. But I think this is also one of the challenges with festivals. If you really want to push then on the box office side, you have to work very hard alongside the film to make it seen, to make it and to get the right awareness.
I'm just sorry to make you answer another question, but I know, of course, you're not putting films into festivals, but you do have your rendezvous in Tokyo and in New York, and unfortunately, there's the American Film Festival that unfortunately this year they couldn't have because of the strikes. Do those, when you look at those festivals and the films that you decide to promote there, can you see afterwards that they have helped the box office, or is that too? Am I putting you on the spot too much there?
No, I think that's very interesting because, like 20 years ago, Unifrance took only films without distributor to these festivals that we are doing on our own. The most known ones are in New York, together with the Film at Lincoln Society, and in now near Tokyo in Yokohama, which we are organizing. And we only took films that were not sold because we said, okay, we give it to the public and they will see, the press will talk about it, and then they will all sell, which did work 20 years ago. And then year by year, these films didn't get sold anymore, and we didn't get even any press because they said, well, why should we write about a film that is not even distributed in our country? And then there was a major change like 10 years ago or 15 years ago that we decided to actually organize these festivals as huge premiere festivals, having a distributor attached and doing a whole thing of promotion. So the thing is, we take 10, 15 films to Yokohama, all distributed, and we get the film teams with us because Japan is far. They might not come if they are the only once a year alone for a premiere, but they come because it's a whole bunch of friends. They all go and they speak not only to the Japanese but also to the French. And that works. And so we have huge press coverage, and usually what happens is that films we screen, it's very difficult to say they do better, but in a way, I have tons of discussions with distributors because it's a lot of money for us. So if I need to know how it works, and we really get very positive feedback from the distributors because they say it might not be essential, but it's a huge help, and it might push the film a little bit beyond what it would do without these festivals. So that's for sure. That's where I see the box office related. We do a festival in Rome too. We had a very nice opening with François Ozon, Mon Crime. The film crossed, it might not seem a lot for you, but it's 140,000 admissions in Italy, which is right now really nice. So for a French film, and that's something the distributor told me, well, without the opening, without having Isabelle Huppert, Rebecca Marda, Nadia Tereskevich, and of course Ozon all together on stage doing the press the next day, it might not have crossed as much.
That's interesting. And Susan, we were just talking about this beforehand, like when you are trying, so you've got The Promised Land, which has gone to loads of international festivals. Denmark's smaller than France, but do you have local festivals where you try and show or maybe not The Promised Land because it's got so much coverage, but maybe a smaller festival in the hope that it will connect with audiences in Denmark, or not really?
I mean, quite honestly, Denmark is so small, so it doesn't mean that much, and I think there's a lot of promotion by itself. In Denmark, there you don't really need the festivals as much. What we have instead in Denmark is something called the Cinema Club, which helps certain films to get seen by a bigger group of audiences. So I don't think we can have that comparisons as such. But another thing that I wanted to say is, in terms of festivals and the individual films, it's really important not just to say, okay, this film might be ready for the autumn, so let's go for the autumn festivals, but really evaluating, creating the right festival platforms for the films, obviously not forgetting the festivals in the autumn, but it might be that there are festivals like the year after, like spring, or like even waiting for Cannes or whatsoever, that is more important for a film. So it's important really that we as sales agents, together with the producers and directors, find the right platform for the films, even if it might be not when the film is ready for Venice, but it might not be a film that fits into Venice, and then it's maybe better to wait for Sundance or Berlin. And that's really important to have that whole strategic overview from the very beginning as well on the different films. And then you mentioned like festivals, local festivals like Munich in Germany. As a second step for the films, it's really good to find like festivals in the individual territories in order to help both the distributors that are on board or to get distributors on board to find like more local-based festivals in the different countries.
So this isn't putting you shot on the spot too. With The Promised Land, what was your thinking about Venice and going for this period? Because then it's great for the awards season, but at the same time, if it doesn't quite work, it can backfire. It's a very short period of time. So I was wondering, what was the thinking?
I mean, the thinking has been, I mean, very strategically from the very beginning. We were hoping for it to become the Danish Oscar entry, which it now is. And for that, and the timing was perfect. And we tried to get like the triple with Venice, Telluride, and Toronto, which is not an easy task to aim for, but we succeeded in that. Then all the other festivals came afterwards with San Sebastian, Zurich, Busan, and it just keeps on going. So it's a perfect way for that film, because we are trying to go, even though it's a very tough competition this year on the Oscar side, that is has been the aim from the very beginning, to have the package for that.
And Fionnuala, are you also working with all of your distributors in that way? Do you look at the festivals, the international festivals, with as much detail when you talk to the British distributor, or are you looking at where they're putting the films afterwards, or do you tend to trust the distributor to figure out which festivals to put it into in their home territories and their local territories? Sorry, does that make sense?
I mean, it depends on the film, and it depends on where it's kind of premiered and what is sort of happening with that film later. I mean, you know, for example, for Justine Trier's film, that's something that, you know, we're really kind of making sure that things are aligned in Europe in terms of festivals, and also in terms of release dates, to kind of optimize awareness of the film kind of going into award season, and to have all kind of chances on our side for, you know, European voters to be aware of the film. And so that's a film we're a little bit more attentive when we're talking with the UK distributor about when they're releasing, and making sure that it kind of fits in a period that is going to kind of help us later down the line, and it feels like a right sort of platform for their release, and on a more kind of, you know, holistic level.
So, I know I'm bringing up a very sore point. It's not the entry, but it is still in the running for Best Film, Best Director, Best Actress. And so are the coming festivals still really important for you in terms of what it's going to do in the US and around Europe?
Yeah, huge. And I mean, you know, it's not going to have the longest festival season, this film. I mean, it's already started after Cannes, but it's then again, it's more about the kind of release dates. I mean, in the US, it's going to be released in 2 weeks now, October 13th. So it's, you know, it's been at Telluride, Toronto, New York, and I think that's maybe one of the last. Maybe there's a few more festivals, but.
And I think we're going to have it in London. Yes.
Yeah, London. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And are there any just films that you think just should not go to festivals? I mean, they just don't work, and it would kind of backfire for you to take that film to a festival, or try to get it into a festival. Susan.
Well, I'm not sure if it would backfire, but there are certainly films that don't need the festivals in that sense. So if we talk about, we have these kind of big Norwegian disaster movies, and they don't necessarily need a festival to be launched at. Or if we go more to the classic digital things like genre movies, horror films, and stuff like that, if they at certain places can be in like a midnight section of a festival, it's fine, but it's not necessary. I have a hard time seeing that it can backfire if you are at a festival. I haven't experienced it, at least. But there's
you
definitely...
can't have films get killed by the press that are divisive, that could really, you know, be appealing to audiences and do well later. So, but that's about choosing your section and being careful about, you know, the amount of exposure you're going to get in competition as opposed to under section.
Exactly. But
Yeah, no, because sometimes I feel like I was just at San Sebastian and people were complaining to me about some of the films being esoteric. And then there was a sort of American film, UK, Ex-Husbands, which is quite really lovely film. And then some critics were complaining that it was too mainstream. So it was like you couldn't win, with that particular section, so it's interesting. I mean, what about you? Are there films that MK2's, most of your films, I think, do go to festivals. I can't think of too many examples that you haven't launched at a festival.
Generally, yeah. I'll avoid it.
But as Uni-France, we have, France has the luck that we have a great diversity of films that we produce, and we, of course, have also these very big French comedies that actually do cross borders, but are not necessarily part of especially our festivals, because some of the comedies, you show them in New York at the Lincoln Center, it's just not the right public. And I think this could actually backfire. I mean, we are really we try to be very careful with that. And I have huge discussions with producers because some of them say, you never take my film there. And I say, yeah, but it's not the right public for the right film. And I think on the comedies, it's really interesting because there's a huge work done by the distributors, like in Germany, Spain, etc., because they actually make admissions and box office, but they're not the ones that are on your radar when you go to Cannes, Venice, and even the smaller festivals. And there are not so many comedy festivals. And I must say that there are a few sales agents in Paris. They just launched, well, one actually, he launched a sort of weekend of French comedies in LA. First of all, I thought, oh my God, this is like, how is he going to feel and to get
Olivier
Albou with the other angle, and he did it. I mean, they really fought for it, and they make it now every year. And it's a lot of work, but I think it's interesting, like how they built up with other sales agents. They said, we just show the films, we invite people from LA, we invite public, we invite professionals, but we show that people laugh actually. And we're not necessarily aiming at a sale for a distributor, but maybe remake rights, and it's a different way. So I think it's a specific thing. And you can't just push every film in every festival. It's impossible. That's I think what we said. And I just wanted to add also something, because I think we need really to, that there are a lot of exhibitors, a lot of smaller festivals around the world. They are very often also, especially on French films, there are French film festivals that they organize in their town alone, the French week, the Italian week. They do a lot of, if I think of US, a lot of work on these very national-driven festivals. They show films, but it's also in Europe. I think there are a lot of initiatives, and I think we really have to also thank them, because it's not necessarily the big festivals, a very specific, very small ones, done by exhibitors actually, and they do their French or Italian week. And it works because it brings a different public. They somehow also get, I think they get people that really come for this. Oh, it's the French week. We want to see what films are shown. So I think we need that kind of work very specifically. And I think documentaries need it in a way in the documentary world. Animation needs it. And then I think there's a lot of work done in a very specific way that is not on our radar of course, because it's really going down to very small festivals, but I think they are essential for independent cinema worldwide. Because we are not only, French, there's European cinema, American, UK, indie cinema. If we don't have people who are really passionate about what they are doing and they show the films and they bring the public this way, and it's combined box office and maybe some invitations because their best clients they get invited and they have some sponsorship. We need this work because I think creating awareness about foreign-speaking films, wherever in the world it might be, you only can do it like this. And I think this we have to be very careful that we try to work with them as much as we can, because our public of tomorrow gets also educated somehow there.
I forgot to ask, am I allowed to put questions out to the floor? Retta, is there a mic on the floor? There is. So just wanted to see if anybody here would like to put some questions about this subject to the panel. So I'm just putting my eyes like this because the sun.
I just wanted to add something maybe just about the overall question, and I'm assuming it's based on data. Our film festivals programming films that work less in cinemas. I'm not sure when the data dates from. If we're comparing this to 5 years ago, festivals generally had films that worked better in the box office, or it's being compared to 10 years ago, or what it's based on. But if it's true, and I'm assuming it's true, I think we need to sort of look at obviously the pandemic and is it about festivals sort of changing their strategy, or is it just about generally box office is tougher now for art house films, though it's starting to come back this year, and look at it in that sort of context as well, as opposed to...
No, I agree with you. I totally agree. I mean, as we've been talking about the last few days, back in San Sebastian too, is that the box office for, as you say, for art house, it has been really hard. So, but I think that most of the films that I've seen or have, outside of the festivals have been festival titles. That's what's driven me to go and see them with my kids, or suggest that people go and see them, is because I know they've won prizes or they've been in festivals. So let's see what happens in a couple of years' time. Let's hopefully Justine's film is going to do really well all over Europe, and we'll be seeing the comeback. We won't need Oppenheimer and Barbie. We'll have Anatomy of a Fall and The Promised Land. But does anybody want to ask a question? Oh, here we have a question here.
Hi, I'm Laura Daniel from Swiss Films, and I'm responsible for first features and award strategies, among other things. So I have a very specific question, because you mentioned like a dream scenario in the case of The Promised Land, where you launch a film and it goes to Telluride and it goes to San Sebastian and so on. And of course, like the bigger countries, they have also bigger films that they can present, but some of the smaller countries also tried to choose first feature films, also to kind of put a talent on the radar. And in those cases, it can be very difficult to achieve that dream scenario in terms of festival strategy. I'm just, like one example, we submitted Thunder by Carmen Jacquier, which did Toronto last year, did San Sebastian last year, did Busan last year. But we kind of felt that it was not ready to be put out there because it was a first feature. Do you have like any experiences with first features where you would kind of consider that in terms of launching it a little bit earlier, or what are your thoughts on that, and specifically related to first feature films?
Well, it really depends, I think, on each individual film, as we talked about before, and that goes both for debut films as for, known auteurs, to find the right strategy for the films. I think a good example from my side could be Gustav Müller's debut, The Guilty, which is a low-budget film. And when we started working with that, there was a lot of thoughts about going to Venice with the film, but we felt that this film, because it's a very specific film, which is very contained in one room, so we felt Sundance could be a right platform for the film, so we presented it for them at an early stage and took that run. From there, it went to a lot of festivals around the world. It was sold worldwide, and even though it's it was a remake as well, and it was a huge success also in the different countries where it was sold, which was worldwide. And it was a great scenario for the film and the director, and it didn't get nominated, but it was also shortlisted for the Oscars. So, and that's really, but it's because it's a specific film, and there you can say this and this could be the right scenario. We could also have been totally wrong. So I'm not saying that it's perfect, but it's really being conscious about where is feeling-wise the best place to start a film.
I think the first and second film, of course, they have to get a specific attention. I see it with our online festivals. I mean, we do one online festival on French films, and now we launched the European one. And we try to get some first films that are already a little bit around. They have some sales, but not too much, so it's quite a tricky thing. But we get such an attention all over the world through because it's we work with almost all countries with 90 platforms all over the world, and the films are actually seen in a different way. I know it's small screens, but it goes to countries where they never have access to French or European films. So, and I see the interest, how we can actually push it a little bit further through Also this new, I mean, all the social media and the publicity and the filmmakers speak. And what I really think it's interesting, but that's also something, the feedback they get, the filmmakers, they get suddenly through Instagram or whatever, they get messages. I've seen your film like out of Thailand, Indonesia, South America. And I think it's really something about building up. And of course, the first features, it's so tough nowadays. There are so many. We have so many countries, so many independent films, and so many great films. So I think every little thing that you can add is just a game changer for the next one. And I think that's really something we all have to keep in mind, that it's like the more you travel also. I think that's something also why female filmmakers, now I think it's getting better, but had tough times. Sometimes they couldn't travel because of the kids. I have seen so many men traveling with their, even having babies at home. For women, it's much more difficult. So I think that's also a problem for women filmmakers to be able to travel around and to make these connections, because I still think this is really important. But if now we can also shift a little bit, that's something Unifrance wants to do through social media and more the virtual world, and we help them also to travel maybe even more and speak more directly to the public through social media. Maybe that's also, for us, it's something we are really thinking of for especially first and second time filmmakers.
I think it's about really knowing your festivals and really knowing your sections, and how films play differently in different sections and festivals, to the press, to jury, and to distributors, and make your choice based on that. I mean, for us, for example, with debut films, Cannes competition for Mati Diop's Atlantics, that was something that you could hesitate about, because it's that level of exposure for a debut director in terms of the kind of press that you're going to get is really something to consider. But we really felt that the film could hold its own in that section, and could hold its own with the press. And it was a great, I think, decision and sort of bet to make. She walked away with the grand prize, and I can't think of anywhere that could have given her in that film the same kind of platform, especially for something that's really kind of challenging form and thematically challenging. And then something like How to Have Sex, Molly Manning Walker's film, which is a British debut, which won in certain regard this year in Cannes. We were hesitating in different sections as well on that. And it was part of it's standing out in a section that can tend to be a little bit darker in terms of themes and more challenging. So obviously, the distributor kind of the way it's going to look to distributors versus other sections, other sidebar sections in Cannes, it really kind of elevates it. But also that sort of notion that this could be sort of the film with the most energy in that section, and what they can possibly do in terms of press and prizes. So knowing your sections.
I was wondering about How to Have Sex, because she had that connection with Cannes Critics Week, and I guess she might have felt a loyalty towards them. So it must have been a very hard decision to go that way once it's official selection, but I guess she must have had a bit of a debate about that one, but it worked, so it was good.
It was a very tough decision that we all took together.
I think one more question. I think we're probably coming to the end of our time, but
Hi, is it on? Yeah. This might be expanding the premise of the conversation, but what do you see going forward as the relationship between festivals and streaming, right? So in the past few years at Sundance, we've seen movies come in that are already set up with Amazon. Is there a space for festivals in the relationship with streaming going forward? I'm just curious what your different perspectives are on that relationship, because we're talking about theatrical releases here, right? So, and a lot of films end up going to streaming, such as Fair Play, for example.
Does anyone feel qualified to talk about?
I guess maybe just it's a pity that the kind of platform and attention that a film like that is getting in a festival like that is not leading to theatrical, and then other revenues down the line.
Susan?
And also a question like you say with Sundance and then the streamers coming in afterwards. So it depends on where does the film start? Does it start with being a streamer production, then going to festivals, or is it the other way around? And I think, and I mean, we have some streamers in the room as well, that the streamers also can see that there is like an importance in the festivals to get the films out there, to get the films acknowledged and reviewed. So I think it is a balance, and we are all there to, I guess, by the end of the day, to have some fantastic, great films to be seen, both from debut directors, but also from the more acknowledged directors. So, I mean, there are many films, so we need space for all of them somewhere.
Thank you. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing all your insights and kicking off the first panel of the day, which isn't always the easiest. But thank you so much. Thank you for listening.